On a deserted road, Jessica encountered a German shepherd desperately dragging a mysterious bag behind her. Little did she know, this meeting would lead her into a world filled with mystery and danger. Jessica walked calmly down the country road, enjoying the silence and the cool breeze. The road was almost empty, only occasional birds flew overhead, and somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of the forest could be heard. Her thoughts were far away when suddenly her gaze caught a strange movement ahead. A few dozen meters away, a German shepherd was slowly but persistently pulling a large bag behind her. The rough fabric of the bag dragged on the ground, leaving a trail on the dusty road. The dog looked exhausted but didn't stop. Jessica slowed her pace, curiously examining the animal. What was going on? Why did the dog have a bag? Maybe it was her game or something much stranger. She looked more closely and noticed the bag was slightly moving. Jessica's heart clenched. There was something or someone inside. Anxiety grew with every second. Jessica took a deep breath and resolutely moved forward. She had to find out what was happening. Jessica carefully approached, and the shepherd tensed but didn't run away. Instead, she gripped the fabric of the bag even tighter as if protecting it. "It's all right, little one," Jessica whispered, trying to speak as gently as possible. But the dog didn't loosen her grip. Jessica stopped. There was no aggression in the shepherd's eyes, but something else: desperation. Whatever was inside the bag was extremely important to the dog. She decided not to rush. Slowly and without sudden movements, she knelt down to appear less threatening. "Are you scared?" she asked quietly. The dog whimpered. This quiet, plaintive sound pierced Jessica to her very soul. She looked at the bag and noticed it moved again. Something inside was moving. Her pulse quickened. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes widening. Now the bag wasn't just moving. A faint sound came from inside, like someone breathing. But who? A person? An animal? Dozens of thoughts whirled through her mind. The dog stepped back. She no longer growled. Her look now said, "Open it quickly." Jessica swallowed. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the knot. The fabric was old and dirty, tied with rough knots. Someone intentionally tied it very tightly, not wanting the contents to escape. She tried to untie the knot, but it was too tight. Time was passing, and someone inside could be suffocating. Without thinking, Jessica grabbed a nearby sharp stone and began tearing the fabric. The shepherd held her breath. She no longer moved. She was waiting. Finally, the fabric yielded, and the bag opened slightly. Jessica peeked inside. What she saw made her heart stop. From the darkness, tiny, frightened eyes looked at her. Puppies were there. Jessica held her breath. The bag's fabric was rough, worn, with an unpleasant smell of moisture and dirt. With each movement of her fingers, the tension in the air increased. The German shepherd stood nearby, not taking her eyes off. There was no more growling, no fear, just anticipation. Jessica carefully unwrapped the bag. At first, she thought it was just an old rag inside, but then something moved. A small, barely audible squeak broke through the silence. Jessica gasped. She pulled back the fabric and froze. Inside were small, helpless puppies. There were 4 of them, tiny, with closed eyes. Their little bodies shivered from the cold. They huddled together, trying to keep warm. Their breathing was weak, but they were still fighting for life. Jessica felt a lump rise in her throat. Who could do such a thing? Someone deliberately put these tiny creatures in the bag and left them in the wilderness to die. But the shepherd found them. She had pulled the bag from somewhere in the forest, dragging it tirelessly until she met Jessica. Jessica looked at the dog. Now she understood. The shepherd whimpered softly. She looked at Jessica with a plea, with hope, with endless sadness. There was no aggression in her eyes, only fear and despair. "These are your babies," Jessica whispered. Her voice trembled. The dog stepped closer and gently touched one of the puppies with her nose. Jessica immediately understood. She was their mother. The puppies were so weak, they shivered. Their tiny paws barely moved, as if lacking strength even for that. Jessica felt her insides clench with pain. They wouldn't survive here. They needed warmth, food, protection. The shepherd licked one of the puppies and looked at Jessica. Her gaze said it all. Help. Jessica nodded, as if answering without words. I won't leave them. She quickly took off her scarf and carefully wrapped the puppies to warm them. Then she looked at the dog. Will you come with me? The dog paused. Jessica feared she would run away, but the next second, the shepherd stepped forward and stood beside her. The puppies were so tiny, and Jessica felt their trembling breath in her arms. The shepherd walked alongside, not falling back a step. She trusted Jessica. The road home seemed endless. Jessica kept talking, reassuring the dog. Everything will be fine. We'll get there. I'll take care of you. The dog just walked beside her. She had already done everything she could. Now she believed Jessica would save her puppies. When they finally reached home, Jessica quickly spread a warm blanket and gently laid the puppies on it. The shepherd immediately lay down next to them, not taking her eyes off. Jessica warmed some milk and started feeding the puppies with a pipette. The shepherd watched closely, as if understanding Jessica was doing everything possible. And then the first puppy squeaked loudly. Jessica smiled. They were alive. They would survive. As Jessica sat on the floor, watching as the dog gently licked her pups, checking each one. The puppies, now somewhat warmed, began to show more signs of life. Their weak little bodies moved slightly, and they whimpered softly, huddling close to each other. You saved them, Jessica whispered, addressing the dog. Hope lifted her head and looked at her. The look was so deep that Jessica felt something tighten inside her. Gratitude was visible in those eyes, but there was also fear. Jessica frowned. Something was wrong. Hope looked away and pressed closer to her pups again. She felt safe here, but worry still lingered. Jessica ran her hand through her fur, thinking, everything seemed too strange. Why were these puppies abandoned? Why was Hope alone? Jessica suddenly realized she didn't know the whole story, but one thing she knew for sure was that this dog couldn't stay on the street. Several days passed. Jessica cared for the puppies, fed them, kept them warm, checked their breathing, held them close to her heart so they could hear her heartbeat, just as they once did their mothers. Hope stayed close, but now, as she relaxed a little, it became clear how exhausted she was. She ate ravenously, as if she hadn't known what a normal meal was for a long time. Jessica watched her, wondering what Hope had gone through. But something worried her. Sometimes at night, Hope would get up, go to the door, and start listening. Jessica noticed this. One night she woke up to Hope's quiet whimpering. "What's wrong, girl?" she whispered. Hope didn't move. She was looking out the window. Jessica got up and walked closer. It was dark outside, but when she peered into the distance, her heart skipped a beat. Someone was there, among the trees, a figure barely distinguishable in the night. Jessica felt goosebumps spread across her skin. Hope growled softly. Jessica cautiously stepped back, grabbing her phone. But when she looked out the window again, the figure was gone. She stood there for several minutes, tensely peering into the darkness. No one. Finally, she took a deep breath, petted Hope, and returned to bed. But sleep no longer came easily. The next morning, Jessica made a decision. She didn't know exactly what was happening, but she knew one thing: these puppies and their mother were in danger. She couldn't let them be homeless again. She couldn't allow them to be alone again. She called a veterinary clinic and arranged for a visit. While she gathered their things, Hope kept watchful eyes on her. When Jessica opened the door, the dog paused. Jessica kneeled down and extended her hand. "Come, sweetie." Hope hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. The examination in the veterinary clinic went quickly. The puppies were weak but otherwise healthy. They just needed to gain strength. But the words of the veterinarian about Hope made Jessica tense up. "You said you found her on the street?" he asked, frowning. "Yes, she was dragging a bag with puppies," Jessica nodded. The veterinarian ran his hand along her back. "It seems she recently fed not only these puppies." Jessica blinked. "What? She had more offspring?" she asked, looking at him. "But where are they now?" Jessica felt a chill run up her spine. She remembered how Hope would get up at night, how she looked out the window. Could it be? Jessica exhaled and looked at the dog. "Were you trying to tell me there were still puppies left there in the forest?" Hope looked at her, then at the door. Jessica felt her heart speed up. If there were more little ones, they might not survive. She had to act. Without wasting a moment, she jumped into the car, and Hope jumped in after her. They raced to the very spot where Jessica first saw the dog. When they arrived, Hope immediately took off running. Jessica followed behind, her heart pounding. The dog dashed through the forest, pushing through the bushes. Her nose was catching scents. Her paws barely touched the ground, and then she stopped. Jessica froze. There, tucked in a corner among the trees, was another bag, but it was partly open. Jessica rushed forward as she tore at the fabric. Inside, curled up, were 3 more puppies. They were barely alive. Jessica felt tears well up in her eyes. They were still breathing. "Hold on, little ones," she whispered, carefully picking them up. Hope immediately began to lick their faces, whimpering softly. Jessica wrapped them in her jacket and held them close to her. She didn't know who could do such a thing, but she knew one thing. These puppies and their mother would never be alone again. She would take care of them. But something inside her suggested that this story wasn't over yet. She looked deeper into the forest. There, among the shadows, something was moving. Jessica froze. Someone was watching. She stepped back, holding the puppies in her arms. Hope growled, and Jessica realized this nightmare wasn't over yet. Jessica stood still. Her heart pounded in her chest. The wind rustled the leaves, but she knew it wasn't just the wind. Someone was out there. Hope snarled, but didn't charge forward. She pressed her ears, guarding the puppies. Jessica quickly turned and walked back to the car. If someone was truly watching them, staying here was dangerous. She seated the puppies in the car, and Hope jumped in after them. The engine roared. The wheels spun on the wet ground. The forest was left behind, but the anxiety didn't fade. Returning home, Jessica immediately tucked the little ones into a warm blanket. They were exhausted, but alive. Hope stayed close. Jessica crouched beside them, watching Hope. "Is this everything?" she asked softly. The dog looked at her. Jessica suddenly understood. "No, this isn't everything. Someone abandoned the puppies to die. Someone was in the forest." She could no longer ignore the fact. The next morning, she went to the police. "They might have thought I was crazy, but I know what I saw," she explained to the officer. "Someone was watching us." The man at the table nodded, taking notes. "You found the puppies there in the same place you found the first time?" "Yes. And you say the dog acted as if she knew someone else was out there?" Jessica nodded. The officer pondered. "We'll check." But Jessica could tell by his eyes. He didn't take it seriously. She left, sighing irritably. That meant she'd have to deal with it herself. At night, she didn't sleep. The windows were closed, the door locked, but she felt something was wrong. Hope lay by the puppies, but periodically raised her head and listened. Jessica lay staring at the ceiling, and then she heard it. Steps behind the door, not in the house but nearby. Jessica froze. Her breathing quickened. She slowly got up, pressed herself to the window. Nothing, just the night. But Hope was already standing by the door, softly growling. Jessica reached for the phone, but at that very moment, Bam! A loud noise from outside. Jessica flinched. Hope barked. She grabbed a flashlight and opened the door without thinking. Darkness. Her heart raced, and suddenly, distant at the edge of the property, a figure in the shadows. A person. Jessica, without hesitation, switched on the flashlight. The beam revealed a male figure. The stranger jerked and threw himself away. Jessica rushed back into the house and slammed the door. What was that? Who was coming to her home? But why? Her body trembled with adrenaline. She dialed the police. There was a person on my property. Yesterday I reported a strange situation. I think it's connected. This time the officer didn't dismiss her. We'll send a patrol. When the patrol arrived, there were no traces left. Are you sure it was a person? The officer asked. Absolutely, Jessica said firmly, and I'm sure it's connected to the puppies. The officer thought for a moment. Recently, we've had cases of illegal dog breeding in the area. Maybe it's part of something bigger. Jessica went cold. Do you think someone is getting rid of unwanted puppies? Jessica clenched her fists. Someone is throwing them away like trash. But who? All the following week, the police patrolled her area. And one night, when Jessica was almost asleep, she got a call. We found something. It would be best if you came. She arrived at the location. It was an abandoned site by the forest. The patrol officers were shining their flashlights on an old house. We've checked the area and found this. The officer pointed at the basement. Jessica walked over and looked inside. Her heart sank. There were cages, empty but stained with paw prints and scents. This was where the dogs had been kept. The officer sighed. It seems this was an illegal kennel. Perhaps when the owners realized they had too many puppies, they decided to get rid of them. Jessica gritted her teeth. We'll find the culprits, the officer promised. But you saved those you could. Jessica closed her eyes. She knew. But it wasn't enough. Months passed. The police arrested several suspects. The puppies grew. They were healthy and happy. Jessica found them good homes, but she kept one puppy, a little girl who resembled her mother. She named her Faith. Now Hope had a family, and Jessica had a reminder. Never to turn away when someone needs help, because even one person can change the world, even for one dog. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.